Now, if you're watching this video, you're most likely on your way to Iceland for the winter, looking for some ideas, tips, and recommendations. Now, I'm happy to say that you've come to the right place. My name is Daniel Andri, or Dan for short, easier to remember, and I'm the owner of Wake Up Reykjavik. I've also experienced more than 29 winters here in Iceland, so I definitely have some experience that I can share with you guys. Now, my idea for this was to make a short video about visiting Iceland during the winter. No fluff or nothing too long or too fancy, just useful, practical information about visiting Iceland. Everything from how to see the Northern Lights, my 4 favorite winter activities here in Iceland, what you can expect in regards to weather, what to pack, how much daylight we have during the winter, all the most useful stuff. Now, we do have a lot to cover, and I did mention that this was going to be a short video, so let's get started. Now, let's start with 4 practical tips that will ensure a better trip to Iceland. Number 1, when you fly into Iceland, you actually won't be flying into Reykjavik, which is our capital and pretty much where you want to be for your stay in Iceland. Instead, you'll be flying to Keflavík, or Keflavík International Airport, which is about 45 minutes driving from Reykjavik. Up until recent, every flight ticket would have KEF, K-E-F, or Keflavík International Airport on it, but I've heard recently that a few travelers flying into Iceland will actually have Reykjavik Airport on their ticket. This could be a bit confusing because it seems like you're flying into the Reykjavik area, but make no mistake, when you fly to Iceland, you're flying into Keflavík. Now, there are a few ways to get from Keflavík to Reykjavik, and we'll go over them here. The first one is to rent a car. It's very simple. You rent a car, you pick it up at the airport, and you drive to the city. Simple. Now, the second option would be to take a taxi. It can be very convenient, very simple. The taxis do have a fixed rate on what they charge for the trip from the airport to the city. So if you're traveling by yourself or if you're traveling as a couple, then it wouldn't really be the most cost-effective way to get to the city. But if you are traveling with a slightly larger group, so if you're a group of 4 to 8, I would say, would make sense. And the taxis go directly to your accommodation in Reykjavik, which can be convenient as well. And there's really no need to order a taxi ahead of time because there will always be a long line of taxis right outside the airport. And yeah, option 2, take a taxi. Now, the third and final option is to take the flybus. It's a big bus that departs very frequently from the airport to the city. If you're traveling by yourself, it definitely makes sense. But if you're traveling, I would say group size 1 to 4, then it's going to be your least expensive option. Now, you can order tickets ahead of time online, but you can also get tickets in the arrival hall when you arrive. Tip number 2 is that when you book your accommodation, book it in the central Reykjavik area, basically downtown Reykjavik. And the reason for this is that you'll be close by and within walking distance from all the restaurants, bars, clubs, cafes, shops, pickup points for the tour. You'll be close to everything. You won't need a rental car, you won't need to take any taxis. It'll be a lot better. Side note, if you're booking an accommodation with Airbnb, then oftentimes the listing will say that it's in downtown Reykjavik or very close to downtown Reykjavik, when in reality it isn't. It might be 25 to 30 minutes driving from the city, and that's not very convenient. It might be a bit of a headache. So, a neat little trick that I found is that when you found an accommodation or a hotel, for example, that you're thinking about booking, I would take the name of the hotel or the address of the Airbnb listing and putting it into Google Maps. From there, I would look at the distance, the walking distance that it takes to get from the accommodation to Harpa Concert Music Hall. Harpa Concert Music Hall is very centrally located in the downtown area. And if it says that it's in 15, I would say within 15 minutes walking from the Harpa, then the accommodation you're looking at is centrally located. If it says 30 minutes or 40 minutes, then it's not in central Reykjavik. 3 is that you don't need Icelandic cash while in Iceland. Everyone here takes credit cards, debit cards, and you can even pay with Apple Pay everywhere you go. Now it could be nice to bring along some US dollars with you if you go to a nice restaurant that you really enjoy, or if you want to tip your tour guide. Now there is a strange rumor going around that Icelanders will feel insulted if you offer to tip them. But that is a lie, because who doesn't love money? Tip number 4. The weather here in Iceland, especially during the winter time, can be unpredictable. From past experience, I would say January and February are our stormiest months. Now it can very much vary from year to year, but usually if we're getting any heavy snowstorms or anything like that, it'll almost always be in January and in February. Now in regards to snowfall, we usually don't receive our first snow of the winter until December, sometimes January. Regardless of when you're coming to Iceland, if you're coming over the winter months, as long as you're prepared, you bring with you hat, gloves, warm jacket, you'll be in tip-top shape to enjoy everything here in Iceland. In regards to temperature and average temperature throughout the winter months, October, November, very similar, average temperature around 40 degrees. December is usually around 33 degrees, which is higher than most people expect. But we do get that cold wind. So even though it's 33 degrees, it often feels a little bit colder than that. January and February are similar, tiny bit colder. And then in March, it's around 34. So December, January, February, March, all pretty similar months, but when we're reaching the second half of March, the weather starts to get a little bit better, a little bit warmer. All right. Now the last thing we're going to be talking about is my 4 favorite winter activities. In my opinion, must-dos if you're visiting Iceland during wintertime. Now my first recommendation is our food tour, the Reykjavik food walk. Now it's a 3-hour foodie adventure here in downtown Reykjavik, where you'll have a fun local guide show you around. It's a great way to get to know the city, and he'll also take you to 5 amazing local restaurants and hidden gems to enjoy incredible Icelandic food. Now it's something that I would highly recommend doing on your first day in Iceland, since it's such a great way to get a feel for the city and the history and culture around it. Now also in this tour, it's packed with food. So for all guests signing up for the lunch tour, we always say skip breakfast, don't think about lunch, just arrive to the tour super hungry. Likewise goes for the dinner, for the evening departures. There's no need to plan dinner because you'll be visiting 5 different restaurants and eating a variety of amazing Icelandic food. Now it's a lot of fun and it's a small group experience, which means that it does sell out in advance. So I always recommend, if you've decided on wanting to do the food tour, is to book your tickets with as much notice as possible, just so you don't miss out. Now I will link to the food tour in our description. On the website you can see photos and videos of the tour. It's also possible to book tickets there. Now since you're watching this video, I wanted to throw in a little promo code. So if you want to join it, recommend booking it in advance and using the promo code WINTER, which will give you a discount off the tour. Now that would be the best tour you can do here in the city. You'll also want to get a little bit outside of the city and see some of the amazing sightseeing sites and scenery outside of Reykjavik. And for that, I would recommend 2 different tours. One of them being a tour of the Golden Circle, and the other one being a tour of the south coast of Iceland. Both are absolutely fantastic. For the Golden Circle tour, it'll visit some of the highlight kind of sightseeing spots in Iceland. You'll see Þingvellir National Park, the erupting geyser, Gullfoss waterfall. It's also possible to do a tour that visits all those spots and then also makes an extra visit to a natural hot spring, Secret Lagoon. It's really fun. It's a full day experience. If you want to see as much sightseeing as you can and you only have 1 day to do it, then Golden Circle or South Coast would be your best bet. South Coast is very similar but different. On that tour, you'll visit some of my favorite waterfalls that you find here in Iceland. Seljalandsfoss, which is the waterfall that you can walk behind. It's beautiful during the winter time. Also very close to that is a secret hidden waterfall that you will also visit. And after that, you'll visit Skógafoss. Forest waterfall would be the translation in Icelandic. Really beautiful as well during summer and during winter. On that tour, you'll also visit the small coastal town of Vík. Really beautiful. And the beauty about those two tours is that if you're visiting Iceland during winter, December, January, those are the months where we have the least amount of daylight, only 4 or 5 hours. And for both of these tours, they're full day experiences, but they depart at a time where you're driving out of the city during pitch black darkness, and then you're arriving to all these amazing sightseeing spots to enjoy in the daylight, get some nice sightseeing going, and then when you're done seeing all the different sights, you'll depart back to the city once it starts to get dark again. Now there are hundreds of different Golden Circle tours available, and similar with South Coast. So many different tours to choose from. We at Wake Up Reykjavik, we basically only want to recommend and offer the best possible experiences. Tour operators that have a similar mindset as to Wake Up Reykjavik and what we do with our food tour, but with their tours, where the mentality is small group, local, authentic experience. And that's exactly what the tour operators that we work with offer. So, if you're interested in doing a Golden Circle Secret Lagoon, or a South Coast tour with what we believe to be the best operator to do it, then I'll also link to that in the description for you to check out. Now the fourth tour I would recommend checking out is a small group Northern Lights tour. Now the Northern Lights can be amazing to see, but they can be very unpredictable and tricky to find. So to maximize your chances of seeing the amazing Northern Lights, I recommend doing a tour. And I recommend booking it for your first evening in Reykjavik, preferably. The reason being that the tour doesn't depart unless the chances of seeing the Northern Lights is quite high. So if you book it for your first evening and the forecast doesn't look so great, you'll be contacted and you can reschedule to a different date later on in your stay with higher chances of seeing the lights. Also, if you do go on the tour and you don't see any lights, then you'll have unlimited retries until you see them. Now you can of course see the Northern Lights on your own, but you would need a rental car. You'll need to monitor the weather forecast and the Northern Lights forecast very carefully. Or you can simply skip all that, do a tour, and with these tours basically they have a weather expert that's monitoring the weather and the Northern Lights forecast extensively throughout the day, and they'll basically take the tour to the spot each particular night that has the highest chance of seeing the lights. Now on these tours as well, you will have a warm little blanket to keep you warm, some traditional Icelandic pastries, and some hot cocoa as well. So if you're coming during the winter time and you want to see the Northern Lights, I'd book a tour for your first night. And if you're interested, I'll link to that in our bio as well. Now that's it. We've covered weather, what to expect, my practical tips, 4 of my favorite activities to do here in Iceland. I think the most essential info you'll need for a trip to Iceland during the winter time. If I'm forgetting everything, like I said, it's just gonna be a short video, but if you have any additional questions, let me know in the comments and I'll answer every single one. I hope this has been helpful. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like, subscribe to our page. We're gonna be making a lot more Iceland related videos. And yeah, that's it. See you guys soon in Iceland during winter.